International Nurses Day. We do this series every day from 2 till 3 o'clock. The etiquette will be same. Please keep your microphone on mute throughout so everyone can hear what the speakers say clearly. Use the hands up option if you want to say something and wait for an invitation from myself facilitating. You can always use the chat box, and if you've got comments, mark them with a C, and if you've got questions, mark them with a Q, please. If your connection goes or it's not very good, if you turn your camera off, that sometimes will help with the broad width. We will be recording the session, and as such, if you don't want to be seen on the screen, just turn your camera off. So can I ask, oh, the recording has started. That's lovely. Okay, next slide. This is the agenda for the day. So you've got me, I've just done what we need to do. We've got Dr. Anne Scott, who's our Executive Director of Nursing, and Jacqueline Barnes, who's the Director of Nursing and Professional Assistant System Development within HSN England, and I, who's going to be talking about nursing and celebrating International Global Nursing. We will then be followed by Gina, Professor Gina Higginbottom, who will talk about her conversations in nursing. Then Alice, Emma, Amy, Lisa, and Joanna. And Joanna is our student nurse, third-year student of Grow Our Own Leadership. Thank you. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Anne. Anne?
Thank you very much indeed. Wow, brilliant. So it's such a privilege to be opening our first session in our week-long celebration of International Nurses Day, which is actually on Wednesday. And today's session in conversation with our nurse leaders. It's fantastic. So just a bit of background. I think you probably already know this, but the International Council of Nurses have essentially said that celebration will be titled Nurses, a Voice to Lead, a Vision for Future and Healthcare. And the Royal College of Nursing want to showcase what it means to be a nurse and how nurses have led patient care during the COVID pandemic and the fundamental role that nurses play in patient safety. So I do hope that you have some time this week to pause and reflect and celebrate our amazing profession. And in particular on Wednesday, actually, I think if we could all take some time on Wednesday to remember. And I would also like to sincerely thank every nurse and clinician actually for all the hard work that they do every day. I think that's really important. Now, Anita, you're going to help me with my slides, aren't you? So would you mind doing the next slide, please, Anita? Thank you very much. So my journey. So I'm born and bred in Leicestershire. I began my nursing career in 1987 as a registered general nursing student at the Charles Frere School of Nursing that was then in Leicester. And my clinical duties were based mainly across the Leicester General and the Leicester Royal Infirmary. I qualified as a registered general nurse in 1990 and since have taken every opportunity that nursing has offered to me to learn and develop. These pictures of me, the first one is me as a newly qualified staff nurse. And the one more recently is when I was proudly appointed as your Director of Nursing, Allied Health Professionals and Quality. I think the nursing profession at that time when I first qualified was very, very different. And it had a very hierarchical, often very scary seniority feel to it. And as a first year newly qualified staff nurse, you were often seen as at the bottom of a very, very tall ladder. However, I quickly learned the art of being a nurse and the power of a smile, the force of kindness and the knack of appearing to juggle several balls at once whilst trying to maintain a surface level of calm and control, albeit on the surface. I think nursing is a great profession and I believe that being a nurse is such a privilege. I'm passionate about the difference that nursing can make and I'm very proud of my professional qualification. It has been such an honour in my life that I've cared for so many patients and their families over the years in a variety of clinical settings and in various roles. And I'm also very proud to say that I've nursed alongside many international nurses. Next slide, please, Anita. Thank you. So this last year in particular has been unprecedented and drawing on all of our energies and internal resources. and I'm very mindful about how we look after ourselves and each other. I've suffered burnout twice in my career, and going through this experience has really helped me to understand and support others better. Looking after yourself and your colleagues is such an important yet simple message. I've done many roles throughout my career. My background is in acute emergency medicine. I've worked in many leadership roles, from a deputy ward sister, matron, a nurse practitioner, divisional head of nursing, and now as your director of nursing. And I would like to say, and I think most of us would agree, that looking after yourself and your team is really, really key. It's a key message to stay safe and look after your patients well. Next slide, please, Anita. I would say that having a role model and being a role model is so important in our profession to help guide, teach and lead both staff and patients, actually. Having real empathy for others and trying to put yourself in their shoes of others, and being mindful about how you land yourself with others, with other people. These are two key messages from two of my role models. First one here is Atticus Finch. He is a fictional character from one of my favourite books, To Kill a Mockingbird. And he was teaching his children that if you can learn a simple trick, it's to walk in the shoes of others. And another infamous role model of mine is Maya Angelou. And she said that she's learned how that people, you will forget what people say, you will potentially forget what they do, but you will never forget how they make you feel, how that person's made you feel. And I think that is so important message. Next slide, please, Anita. Thank you. So it would be remiss of me not to have a picture of Florence Nightingale. And May the 12th on Wednesday is such an important date to all nurses, as it is the anniversary of Florence's birthday, widely considered the founder of modern nursing. We celebrated on May the 12th since 1965, and last year marked the 200th birthday of Florence Nightingale. But obviously, due to COVID, we were not able to celebrate this as we planned. So this year has made it even more special. So this message is one that that keeps me grounded, actually, and has done for many years. Florence's message here is, I attribute my success to this. I never gave or took any excuse. And I would like you to reflect this week on, do you give or take excuses? Or do you call it out and try to understand what's behind it? This is such an important part of holding ourselves and others to account so that we can advocate for our patients. Next slide, please, Anita. So I just wanted to ask you now if you wouldn't mind just lighting a candle, please. I've got mine lit here because I want to say a poem, and I'll just give you a second to light your candle. Mine's here, so I'll just put that down just for the health and safety. Thank you. Anita, can I have the next slide, and I will read the poem that we've chosen, please. Thank you. So this poem I hold very dear. I first read this poem about 20 odd years ago, or one very similar, and it has evolved to a number of authors, but I wanted to read this to you all. Being a nurse means you will never be bored. You will always be frustrated, and you will be surrounded by challenges. So much to do and so little time. You will carry immense responsibility and very little authority most times. You will step into people's lives and you will make a difference. Some will bless you and some will curse you. You will see people at their worst and at their best. You will never cease to be amazed at people's capacity for love, courage and endurance. You will see life begin and end. You will experience resounding triumphs and devastating failures. You will cry a lot and you will laugh a lot. You will know what it is to be human and what it is to be humane. So I would like us just to take a second now to think of all of our international nurses going through COVID, but in particular our colleagues in India who are really, really struggling at the moment. We've seen the awful pictures and images via the media, and I'm sure most of you will have friends and maybe even family out there at the moment. So if we could just take a second, please, just to say your private prayer. Thank you very much, everybody. I shall now pass over to Asha. Thank you, Asha.
Thank you, Anne. I have had a message from Anne-Marie. We are trying to dial in Jacqueline. She's having difficulty, so I don't know if anybody can forward that email. I've just emailed again the link to Jacqueline. If we can't get her in earlier, I know she's given us an hour, so maybe we can catch. Oh, here she is. Here she is. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, Jacqueline. Hi, Jackie.
Apologies, I joined on another invite I'd been sent, so I've been sat there for a bit, so I'm so sorry.
No, sorry, Jackie. Hi, I've just shared my story, and we've just had a poem, and we've just said a prayer for our international nurses, particularly those who are, fighting the COVID battle at the moment in India. So we've all just lit a candle, and I'm actually going to blow mine out now because I'm a bit lethal. So yeah, and I've just said this poem which I really hold dear. So I'm handing back over to Asha now. But thank you for joining us, Jackie.
You're very, very welcome.
Thank you, Jackie. So I'm going to blow my candle out now as well. I've got a real one. So I'm going to hand straight over to Jackie.
Gosh, that is quick, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So apologies if I repeat what's already been said before, but I think this week is a time to reflect on what's been achieved by nurses in this country and across the globe. And I absolutely agree with you at the moment. Special thoughts for our colleagues in India, Vietnam, and parts of Europe as they experience their latest COVID surges. I think reflecting on what's been a challenging year, there are some positives we mustn't lose. So how we as nurses have adopted and adapted at such pace what's been needed. The camaraderie amongst nurses actually in the last year, and the support to each other that's been generated. Our role in delivering a vaccine programme that's just been outstanding. And on the back of that, an increase in general nursing applicants that's up by 34%. I think when you look at the increases we've had come in for acute mental health and learning disabilities, it equates to almost 38,000 general nurses. It's phenomenal. So something has got out there to the public and to people of all ages who are coming forward. I was speaking to somebody who's in their 50s who's just actually been awarded a place in Sunderland University to train to be a nurse. And when I think about why I came into nursing, which is what Asha challenged me to think about, I actually don't recall what made me think about being a nurse. All I know is from the age of 6 I did. And whether that was 1970s dressing up toys or the influence of television, I'm not quite sure. But I've never wavered about wanting to be caring, look after others and be kind. And in this last year, that's been so much more important than ever as we've looked after each other and our patients and our families. And we need to continue to do so, because there's some nurses are only starting to feel the effects of this last year. So health and well-being of us all is important. We also know that not enough nurses of colour are within our profession, and we need to do a lot more to improve equality, diversity, inclusion. And the work of Asha, Jennifer Pearson and the network has never been more important. Driving changes where everybody has a sense of belonging, where we are inclusive by default and the diversity of our staff is recognised and celebrated, and taking responsibility individually for actively leading the way through our own actions and holding each other to account for cultural change is important. And for me, this is about real action. This is about allyship, aspiring leaders, identifying talent, creating opportunities, and really being open to new and diverse thinking. So in terms of high points, I think I've covered quite a few. I don't want to talk for too long because I'd rather we had a conversation. And I've had many opportunities to be part of celebrations in the past like this, and actually they probably rank up there as the highest, if I'm honest. So things like this today are the high points for me. And then I think the final challenge, Ashley, you gave me was to think about what would be the message to my younger self. So I've had a thought about that. I think a couple of things. So first of all, grab every opportunity and do not let your lack of confidence hold you back. I know I've been victim to that myself. Get into the habit of looking after yourself at an early stage. Take regular holidays and look after yourself physically. Trying to put a pattern in at 50, which I turned this year in the lockdown, is really hard work. And then the final one, on a more lighter note, is actually getting the pension. If you haven't got a pension and you're not thinking about your financial status going forward for when you retire, please think about it at an earlier stage. And if I was going to tell anything, that would be the message I would give to my younger self.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for those wise words. And I wish I'd had that advice when I was started out and saying about my pension. So
Me too.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm going to now introduce a friend, a colleague, and someone who did this series for us last year during Black History Month. So over to Gina, Professor Gina Higginbottom. And I think we've got one slide for you that you wanted to show whilst you were presenting, Gina. Gina, we can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Thank you for inviting me, Asha, and I'm really thrilled to be here contributing to one of your sessions once again at Leicester Partnership NHS Trust. Thanks for that. I mean, I just feel like I've had an amazing and fantastic nursing career. I am a registered nurse, a registered midwife, a registered health visitor, but I'm also a registered nurse in Alberta too. And as Asha was saying earlier, I was an internationally educated nurse in Canada. So I know what it feels like to be an internationally educated nurse and go to a new country and work in a new country, which I think is probably very pertinent for today's session. And I think some of you might be surprised to know that although I'm a professor, I've got a PhD, I've got several degrees in fact, when I started out as a nurse, I started out as a state enrolled nurse. I was the eldest of 5 children. I went to a girls' grammar school and my parents didn't have very much money. So when I was 15, I decided to leave school. And I left school without a single qualification. And I did that because, you know, I needed to get a job and I needed to earn income because there were 5 kids in the family and I was the eldest. But I quickly realised that perhaps I had made a mistake leaving early, and I was working as an office junior, and I really wanted to make what I felt was a more positive contribution to society. And I thought, well, I'm going to try and become a nurse. And in those days, of course, we had the General Nursing Council entrance exam, and that's what I took. And I was absolutely thrilled. I took the exam and they said, yes, you can be an enrolled nurse. But unfortunately, they never told me until halfway through my training course that actually I could have become a registered nurse. This might sound like I'm showing off, but I was top of the class all the way through the program. And so, but it was I'm saying this because I think it's very important to recognize the past inequalities we've experienced in the NHS. And I was directed into that route because of my social identity, not because of my intellectual capacity. So after that, straight afterwards, I went on to the registered nurse training course in Nottingham. I was in the first cohort, or one of the first cohorts, in QMC, Queen's Medical Centre. We had all our clinical placements at Nottingham General, and there was no clinical wards in the QMC at that time. And I absolutely loved it. And I actually loved every part of my nursing career. I know that might sound a bit boring to some people, but I really did enjoy being a staff nurse. And then I went on to become a midwife. And then I went on to become a health visitor. And I loved all my roles. And whilst I was a health visitor, I had opportunity to be seconded to a research study. So I worked half-time as a health visitor, and for the other half of my working week, I worked with a research study called Action Heart, which was like an intervention study trying to promote heart health in the South Yorkshire coalfields. And I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the research. And I thought, well, what I'd like to do is probably get into nurse education, because I can continue my connection with nursing, but I can, you know, really advance the research side of things as well. So shortly after that, the schools of nursing all moved into the universities, and I thought, well, I'll apply for a position. By then I had my first degree, I've concluded my master's degree, and I was appointed as a lecturer. in the School of Nursing at the University of Sheffield. And again, it was an amazing environment to work in. I'll never forget my colleagues. They were so collegial at the University of Sheffield and very, very supportive. But when I got there, I thought, oh, well, if you want to have a career in nursing in a university, you need to get a PhD. How am I going to get a PhD? Because I've got 3 children then. I thought, there's no way I'm going to do it full time, part time. That'll take me 7 years. I'll have to try and get a fellowship. So I looked around and I managed to apply for a National Primary Care Award. In fact, I was the first health visitor and first BME nurse to acquire a National Primary Care Fellowship to support my PhD, which I did in 3 years. And fortunately, during that time, I had research training funds. So I used to go to conferences in Canada, in Banff, International Institute of Qualitative Methodologies. And then I was completely blown away because I found out that this institution was hosted by a faculty of nursing. And I thought, oh, how marvellous to work in that faculty of nursing that combines both my interests. So when I concluded my PhD, I decided to apply to work in the faculty of nursing at the University of Alberta. But in order to do so, I had to become a registered nurse in Alberta. So even though I had a PhD, my credentials had to be evaluated and it was, assessed to make sure that I met the criteria. And actually, I've told no, my credentials didn't. Even though I had a PhD, they said, actually, you're short of mental health nursing hours on your in your nurse training. Because if you remember, back in the day, we either did maternity and obstetrics or we did mental health. You didn't do both placements. And so I just said to them, well, hang on a minute, because I'm also a registered midwife and a registered health visitor. And we do address quite a lot of issues around family mental health in these programs. And so then they said, oh, okay, then, yeah, we'll let you be a registered nurse in Alberta. So that was great, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to work there. It is really a critical criteria. So in relation to high points, I suppose the high points really are actually, for me, was actually becoming a registered nurse myself. In the UK, because as I mentioned, I had quite a convoluted journey, and I can still remember when I went to get my results. I was living in the nurse's home, and we went to the post room to get our results. And unfortunately, I went to get my results with one of my friends who'd actually failed her registered nurse exam. So I remember going to the post room, getting my results. Although I was absolutely thrilled, I couldn't really enjoy myself or celebrate because my colleague hadn't passed her registered nurse training, but she did eventually resit the exam. And then, of course, as I mentioned to you, becoming a registered nurse in Alberta as well, because it was a challenge. It is a challenge. I know ASHA has a new role with internationally educated nurses, but when you go to work in a new country, trying to navigate the systems, it is a big challenge, and it can be very stressful because you're worried all the time that perhaps you're not going to be allowed to be a registered nurse. But it's worth acknowledging that these benchmarks, we have to jump through the hoops in all countries, not just in the UK. But there is, of course, a reason for that, because our public patients and clients have to be protected, and we have to make sure that individuals are capable and efficient in their roles. And I suppose the next highlight for me has been when I became vice president of the Health Visitors Association. When I was a young health visitor, when I was first doing my first degree, I was worried as to how I was going to pay for this degree. And at that time, the Health Visitors Association had something called the Bounty Awards. And I applied for one of these awards, and I actually got it. And that paid for one of my modules. And I also used to attend every year the Health Visitors Association conference. And, I met the president and vice president of the CPHVA. So when I was offered the opportunity to become vice president, I just thought it was fantastic. How amazing that, you can have this wonderful career and eventually end up in one of these senior honorary roles. So I'm really grateful for that. So as regards what advice would I give to my younger self? Well, I think one of the things I would say is that, you know, you are human and you experience human emotions. And I was very, very hard on myself when I first started out in my nursing career because I didn't feel I should be emotional about certain situations. I felt that, you know, I should maintain a stiff upper lip in the patient interface, and that I shouldn't have these emotions when I left my workplace. But we are humans and we experience emotional and psychological trauma, emotional labour and emotional distress. So just the acknowledgement that, you know, we do experience that, and sometimes we need to have help for that. The other thing I think I would say to my younger self is that I think I would have greater courage now to challenge inequality. When I was a young staff midwife, I worked in an area where there was a large demographic of women from South Asian communities. And at that time in the 80s, a lot of the women came from rural areas in Pakistan. They didn't speak very good English and they weren't very well educated. And the whole reason for my research career, challenging health inequalities, really is founded in my experience in that maternity care unit, because I was absolutely appalled at the treatment of some of the women. And the way that they were cared for in labour, I didn't like it. And I was a very junior staff nurse. Anybody who's worked on the labour ward in the 1980s knows that there was a very, very strong hierarchy. And, you know, we junior staff midwives had little influence at all. But it is the thing that really motivated me and drove me in relation to my passion for my research area of ethnicity and health, and with a strong focus on maternal health and migration. And indeed, you know, this issue has very much come to the forefront at the moment, because we know that Black women and mixed race women like myself experience 3 times the rate of maternal mortality as our white counterparts, and Black women experience 5 times, recently come down to 4 times maternal mortality of our white counterparts. So we still do have some serious health inequalities that we need to challenge. But I'm confident that moving forward, now that we have new structures like the NHS Race and Health Observatory, that we are going to challenge these inequalities. All I can say is that I would recommend anybody to engage in a career in nursing, because I have had just an amazing career. I'm so grateful for that.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you for that. So we've now got some of our own staff that I want to introduce, and I will say, ladies, if you can keep it brief to 5 minutes, that would be excellent. We're going to start off with Alice, moving then to Emma, then to Amy, Lisa, and then finally, but not least, because we've got Joanna, who is our student nurse. So can I introduce Alice?
Hello, everyone, and congratulations to you all. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really quite new in the role, only a year old now, and I'm pleased to hear about all these encouragements that I'm hearing at the moment. Let me say, I really appreciate, and I've got a lot to learn. I'm still quite new, and it's lovely to hear these kind of encouraging messages. Thank you very much.
Alice, did you just want to say anything? Have you got any advice for our senior leaders, or for somebody like Joanna just starting out?
I would like to say, you know, thank you very much for paving way for us to have this kind of platform to voice our ideas and even our thoughts, and freely, you know, without feeling as if we are being judged. So yeah, it's quite a good platform for us. Thank you for the work that you've done there before us. I'm quite new. I've not long qualified. I worked at Evington Centre, and now I'm working at the crisis team. So I'm still learning, and yeah, let me appreciate everyone for the work that you've done for us. We hope to keep up the good work that you've been doing.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
Emma. We've got Emma who is with us. Emma, can I introduce you? And thank you for everybody who shared their stories with us. And Emma.
Hi everybody. Oh, it's just really lovely, and I'm going to apologise in advance if I get emotional, because I always feel emotional when we're celebrating the profession I love. You see, I'm off already. So I really thought about why did I come into nursing, and I actually spoke to my mum and said, can you remember? And she said, you've just always said you wanted to be a nurse, even from being little. She said you were quite bossy. I'm a Virgo. And you like looking after people, and you would put your dolls a certain way and make sure they're all tucked up. And her mum was a nurse. She sadly died of breast cancer. I was only 2.5, so I didn't get to really know her well. But my mum would talk about, you know, her nursing experience, and when they moved from Yorkshire to Leicestershire, my granddad was a miner and had to change jobs. She would talk about, you know, Nana doing 12-hour shifts and cycling, you know, 10 miles to get to the hospital to go to work, and how hard she worked, and the sacrifices she made really for nursing. So I guess I was always destined. In terms of high point, I think lots of fabulous, privileged experiences of looking after patients. I think getting a ward sister post was my first sort of sense of achievement. I'm also emotional. I'm also very dizzy and ditzy, but I seem to know what I'm doing in nursing, and it's hard to say, but I was good at it. I really loved it, and I think that came through. And being a ward sister was such a pinnacle. It was such a responsibility. And I think more recently, when I think about the last year, and we talk about nursing a voice to lead, the leadership of nursing and the pandemic response. I mean, again, overwhelmingly how people have worked together, come together, but the value again of and nurses leading that and the response. So real high points. What would I say to myself? Keep smiling. That was my nickname. Lots of you know, as a student I was Smiler. Hey, up here's Smiler again. Are you on today? I think keep smiling. Remember why you came into nursing. And you know, don't lose that compassion and kindness, because they are so important. And I think, as others have said, be kind to yourself, look after the people that you work with, and trust your gut instinct, and whether that's in decisions you make, caring for people, observing, but always listen to your gut. So yeah, so that's me in 5 minutes, hopefully.
Thank you, Emma. I think what you say resonates with quite a few of us, and it is about trusting your gut. And don't forget, as nurses, there's lots of subliminal messages that you take in. It's called Gestalt. And it's based on your experience. So it's not just your gut, it's your past experience telling you that. So when trust your gut, you're trusting it because of all the rationales that you have before. And yes, it is quite an emotional week with everything else that's going on in the world. So we'll leave that there. But thank you, Emma. Emma is our Associate Director of Nursing and Professional Practice. So thank you for that. Can I introduce Amy? Amy Morrison is one of our aspiring BAME leadership. She went on, well, she's hoping to get on the programme, and she's public health nurse. She's a early start health visitor. So over to you, Amy.
Hi. So for me, why nursing? Again, as soon as you sent me the question, Asha, I've probably been reflecting on it this week. And there was a couple of reasons, really. If I'm honest, I finished my A-levels and felt like everyone knew what they wanted to do at uni but me. So I sort of took a year out, and I spent some time in a sort of daycare centre for people with learning disabilities. And I think I loved that, but I thought I want to do a bit more. I think I want to be sort of doing the care plans, making decisions and things like that, really. So I think that's one of the reasons. In the forefront of my mind, I think probably as I've got older, I've started to realise also both my grandmas were nurses. So I've got lots of things popping up in the corner. So on my mother's side, my grandma is from St Lucia, and she came over in the Windrush. My dad's side, my grandma is Jamaican, and she also came over in the Windrush, and they were both nurses. So heard lots of good and bad from them, if I'm being completely honest. So I guess that's just part of my identity and part of who I am. So yeah, that's why nursing. My best day, I have lots. There's bad days too, but lots of good days. Sometimes when I'm talking with friends and family and they're talking about dreading going to work or things like that, sometimes I can find myself being a bit quiet because I feel like, oh, I don't really identify with that. I actually like what I do. So there are lots of good days, and the good days for me are probably within health visiting at the minute. Probably if I've supported someone to get housed, and that can be a really long journey, really, really difficult in Leicester City. And then you'll go and visit them and you will see a family in a warm home doing normal things and being able to see a baby roll about on the floor and, you know, and see their development improve because they've got safety and a base and stability. And from that, sometimes there's a bit of a wobble because I think they've sort of been in fight or flight mode, and then all of a sudden it all sort of catches up with them. But yeah, just seeing how people can thrive from that and thinking like, wow, yeah, I've been part of that and I've given that, you know, helped to give that family just something that's fundamental, I guess, thinking back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So yeah, I think every time I walk away or drive away, I guess, from seeing a family housed safely, that's just a really good day. Sometimes another good day is seeing one of my young mums at work. I walked into a local chip shop and I was served by a mum that I'd worked with. So yeah, seeing her thriving and doing well. Any of those days, and there is lots of them really, are the good days for me. What was the last question? Oh, advice for my younger self. I would say to give myself 30 minutes, and I'm working on this now, 30 minutes of self-care every day, and just do something for me, whether it's going for a walk, having a bath, reading something, just do something selfish for 30 minutes. Because I think sometimes when you're a nurse, you give and give and give at work. Most of us have caring roles at home, and then you give and give and giving. And as you know, you can't sort of pour from an empty bucket. So just putting something back into you, because it can be exhausting at times. What else? I don't feel alone in this arena, so that's nice, because I wrote this down and thought, I don't know if I'm going to be brave enough to say that. I'm going to say it. I'm definitely a crier. So I am. I'm just very soft. Like if someone, whether it's good tears, happy tears, whatever it is, I'm a crier. And I think probably Amy, as a student nurse, a younger nurse, when I was starting off, would probably run into a toilet and go and do that when there was something sad or hard or difficult. Whereas now, I think I just do it, and then other people do it, or yeah, just being a bit open, I guess, with your emotional health, whether, you know, it's a good day, a bad day, and sharing that with your colleagues. So yeah, I'm kind of known as a bit of a softie, and I'm okay with that now. I would also want to say to myself, my background is in learning disability nursing. So when you're on the course, sometimes you can find that people will say, oh, are you sure about that branch? You know, you might not have open as many doors as other branches. Will you get a job? I'm sure all learning disability nurses get this. So I would say, don't listen to that. Don't worry. You absolutely will. And I have. You'll carry those skills with you, and you'll be able to share that with others, actually, especially when you're working with people outside of learning disability nursing, and probably bring that to a wider arena. Yeah, so that would be my advice to my younger self. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Amy. And I've just put in the chat box, you know, emotional intelligence is a gift. We use it, and it has been noted about that. So something about giving yourself. So brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. And we've got Lisa, and Lisa is one of our, are you one of our ward sisters, Lisa?
I am very proud to be a ward sister.
Yeah, and Lisa is hopefully going to be on our Step Up to Great Leadership programme within Trust.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Over to you, Lisa.
Well, I blame my nursing career on, for those ladies of a certain age, on Nurse Nancy, who was in the Twinkle magazine. So if you're as old as I am, you'll recall who that was. But things didn't go quite so well for me at school, and I ended up being a dental nurse, mainly because it was my sister's old job. And I was quite happy as a dental nurse, but it wasn't quite enough. I was a bit bored with just looking after someone's head and mouth. So I decided to take the plunge, and I too did the entrance test and was an enrolled nurse, and was very proud to be an enrolled nurse, I have to say, and had some great memories from doing that. But when I was 16, the turning point to make me do that was my nana died in a community hospital here in Melton. And I saw some really great care. And even at 16, I can remember thinking, that's what I want to be. I want to do that. So I went into nursing when I was 23. I was the oldest in my group at 23. Which put me in quite a nice position, actually, because a lot of people would come and ask me all sorts of questions. And then I converted in 1994, and I had a 14-week-old baby when I started my conversion course. So none of this has been easy, but it's always been worthwhile. I've got so many high points. I can't tell you, you know, the list would go on forever. And I resonate with what Anne said in her poem. Nursing does make me cry most days, if I'm honest, but it also makes me laugh out loud. And I think I cry with laughter as well. I've been honoured as a student nurse to watch one of the first renal transplants. And I can remember being at the General and thinking, wow, when would you ever get an opportunity to do that? So it's things like that and being part of that patient's journey while that's going on. I've seen babies born, I've been there, and I've seen obviously quite a few patients die and giving that dignity at the end of life. A high point for me connected to nursing as well was being allowed to look after my terminally ill sister and being given the opportunity to do that at home with her and being allowed to have some time off from LPT to do that, and I shall be ever grateful for that. Getting emotional. Okay, I'm also really proud last year that I led a red ward when we were in the thick of it last year, and that really was a test of every emotion going, and we're still feeling that a little bit, if I'm honest. However, the real high point as well this year was being asked by the Melton Council to represent the NHS on Remembrance Sunday and to lay a wreath in the middle of the town, obviously with all COVID restrictions, so there weren't huge crowds there, but that was a really high point and something I will treasure. Advice: do it all, question everything. If it feels right and the opportunity's there, doesn't have to necessarily be linked to education, but take those opportunities. So I had the opportunity to do a secondment into school nursing, which took me into safeguarding children, which I really enjoyed. I've also had the opportunities to visit patients in prison. When would you ever get a chance to do that in a normal life? I've been to court, coroner's court, going again tomorrow. Again, though, it's an experience, isn't it? I've also had a really tricky case here a few years ago where we had a relative trying to take his dad home, and this relative was well known to the police, and I ended up with police protection. What job allows that? And it stretches you in all sorts of ways, and you learn loads from every experience. But for me, the biggest voice I would say to my younger self is keep applying the Olay every morning, because it does work, and always think about the mum's test. Would you be happy for your mum to have that care? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That's food for thought, actually. And yes, I remember when managing a team, the team came back to me and said that they weren't feeling wonderful. And I used to say, would you like you visiting you? And they'd think about it. And I said, because that's the acid test. And if you don't feel well enough to work, we need to enable you to get time away so that you are at your best when you're treating clients and patients. So the same acid test is, would, you know, if you were a mum, would you want that treatment to go to your mum, etc. So thank you for bringing that home to us. And what I want to do is I'd like to draw Joanna in, and Joanna is here. Joanna is our 3rd year learning disabilities student nurse. So Joanna, I don't know what you want to say, but you've got the opportunity now to ask all these people different questions. You know, as a student nurse, you probably never get these opportunities again. So it's about, what do you want to ask us, and what's going to make a difference to you, and what's going to keep you with us?
Hello, everyone. I'm just so happy to be here, and I think, to be honest, all my questions have been answered in everything that you've been saying. I like nursing really a lot because, as somebody said before, it takes on diversity, and for me as a mature student, I felt really supported, especially through in the pandemic. There's been such amazing support. I don't know what to say. My questions which I had, and coming from a learning disability background as well, that's the nursing that I'm doing. I had lots of questions about work, about how we're going to support patients in the community, inpatient. And in the pandemic, I've had a chance to do placements inpatient and community, and the support has just been so amazing. And the only thing that I can ask from you now is, I don't know what advice you can give me, as because I'm finishing in 4 months. By September I'm finished, and I think nursing has transformed so much. And as well, learning disabilities being recognized quite a lot, because you sort of like see jobs coming. We've got colleagues already in LPT who sort of like forward us jobs to say these are jobs that you can apply to. We've got teams that are opening up in forensic, in autism. So it's really a big development that I've seen, and I really enjoy it so much. And the only thing I can only ask is, as a student that's going to be newly qualified in a few months, what advice can you give me? Because I've learned from my lecturers who are nurses, I've learned from nurses in placement, and I've learned from forums like this, and I quite enjoy them. And they're creating as well forums within LPT where students can meet with nurse leaders, and we've really enjoyed them, because we've had a chance to actually relay our concerns to leaders, and they've made changes, and it's really made an impact. So that's all I can say. If there's any advice that you can give me, what would it be?
Here we go, nurse leaders. Who wants to put their hand up and take that challenge? Someone's got their hand up and I don't know. Michelle.
Well, I'm going to answer the first bit for you about being a learning disability nurse and your future career. I'm a learning disability nurse. I'm currently the head of nursing for mental health services. And I suppose what I wanted to say is that being a learning disability nurse gives you a really unique set of skills. Because of the wide nature of learning disability nursing and the spectrum of patient groups, going right from people with profound and multiple learning disability that need a lot of physical health care and interventions, right through the spectrum to people with autism, Asperger's, with mild mental health conditions. You are in an expert position to have the world at your feet, really, as a learning disability nurse. Your skill set is so valued by many other disciplines, and your skills will interchange with other fields of nursing. So in UHL, I've got colleagues that are learning disability nurses working in physical healthcare. In mental health, we've got a really core group of learning disability nurses as well, supporting people into mental health areas. And then pure learning disability nursing in, working all the time with people with a learning disability. So you don't need to be anxious about the skills base you've got as a learning disability nurse. The world really is your oyster. So that's the first bit. And I think Anne's desperate to answer your last bit.
Yeah. So Anne's got her hand up. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. I was going to say something very similar, but thank you very much. Michelle is our head of nursing in the Directorate of Mental Health. Joanna, and as Michelle said, she is LD trained, so be good for you to maybe contact Michelle out of this session, just to maybe have a little bit of maybe a supervision session. I think, Michelle, I'm offering you up there. I know Michelle would be delighted if you contacted her, Joanna. I suppose in terms of advice, I would probably say a couple of things about probably be brave, be curious, be kind, and above all, try and have the courage to be yourself. Okay, that's probably the best advice I can give you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us, Joanna, and good luck.
Thank you.
I will watch your career with interest.
I was just looking through the chat box. We've had lots of comments and thank yous to all of our speakers, but we haven't had any questions. So Joanna, thank you for that question. And I don't know if you want to end the series or the end today with the poem. What I will do is I'll just come up with what I've got from today's session, and what I've been told is be brave, look after yourselves, take every opportunity as it comes. You're all passionate, so let that passion shine through. Embrace the knowledge, because it's all transferable. And more importantly than anything else, it's not a job. You know, how many of us would keep going if for the pay that you don't receive, for the extra hours that you do? So it's something about us and about nurses that is unique, because we want to make a difference. We want to make it better for the next patient, so we keep learning. So Anne, I don't know if you want to read the poem again. We've got 5 minutes.
I can do. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. If you just if you want to bring it up, Anita, for me, because I can't remember it off the top of my head. I normally do it quite well, but you don't mind bringing it up for me, Anita, please.
Thank you.
Okay. So as I said at the beginning, this poem means a lot to me, and really does keep me grounded through many dark days. So being a nurse, what does being a nurse mean? Being a nurse means you will never be bored. You will always be frustrated. You will be surrounded by challenges, so much to do and so little time. You will carry immense responsibility and very little authority. You will step into people's lives and you will make a difference. Some will bless you and some will curse you. You will see people at their worst and at their best. You will never cease to be amazed at people's capacity for love, courage, and endurance. You will see life begin and you will see it end. You will experience resounding triumphs and devastating failures. You will cry a lot and you will laugh a lot. You will know what it is to be human and what it is to be humane. Thank you all very much. Such a privilege to be able to be in this session with you today, and I look forward to the rest of the week, Asha.
Thank you.
And
now,
I just want to say a big thank you to Gina and Jackie as well, but most importantly to Joanna and Amy and everybody that's told us their story. Absolutely fantastic to hear from you. And Lisa, love you all. Thank you very much indeed for your leadership.
Thank you. Also, I was just going to ask one last ask from me. If you can all just put your cameras on so we can take a photo, that would be great. Because I know I won't get you all on, but I'll take a screenshot. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. I'll take another one because I've got messages in my... Thank you all. Thank you very much. And we will put the video session on our closed Facebook, so it will be there available for you. So thank you, and please don't forget we have a whole series of these, and come and join us tomorrow at 2 o'clock and throughout the week. Thank you all and goodbye.
Thanks, Asha. Thank you, Anita.